guitar players of the world and Guitar Fam members. In this video, we're going to take a look at an awesome song, Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles. This is the solo fingerstyle arrangement that I came up with for this tune. But if you're just wanting to strum through the song using basic chords, you can go ahead and watch this video too and follow along with the tab just for the basic chord progressions. You can find the tab for this below by clicking on the link there. It'll take you to the Guitar Fam site where you can download that. Before we get any further into this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification if you want to see more lessons like this one and be able to go through them so you don't miss them. It helps the channel out a lot and I really appreciate it. Okay, let's get into this. This is kind of an upper intermediate, approaching kind of advanced fingerstyle song. And if you're having trouble getting the coordinations for this down and you need to just build that solid foundation, the Guitar Fam Fingerstyle Masterclass just came out. It's a very comprehensive course for fingerstyle guitar that will, help you build all the coordinations and skills you need to be able to play songs like this. So go to guitarfam.com and check that out. The first module is complimentary, so everybody can get started with it, or you can invest in the whole course today. Okay, let's get into this. I am Capo 7. I'm going to be using D shapes. So let's just walk through the basic chord shapes that we're going to be using for this song, just so you can kind of have a running start. Here we're going to use a D, and surprisingly there aren't that many chords in the song for such a great sounding song. A G, and a lot of times you'll see me using partial shapes, like maybe just the pinky or something like that when I play, but I'll let you know what I'm playing when I play it. An A or an A7. There's also an E in there. There's a D over F sharp, and E minor 7. There's also this partial F, a C, and then same G, but we're just doing a G over B. So you have this B on the A string as your lowest. Now, and there's some variations on these chords that you'll see as we go through them. And if you just want to strum along to this song and not do the whole fingerstyle arrangement, you can do that too. A really good strumming pattern that you can use is just down, down, up, up, down, up, down, down, up, up, down, up. And you'll recognize that right away. It's just, Here Comes the Sun, just a really super simple version of it. So just follow along with the tab and the chord progressions if, fingerstyle isn't your thing. If fingerstyle is your thing, we're going to get in to the thick of it right now. The cool thing about the song is there aren't a ton of parts. It's really repetitive, but the parts that are there can be a little bit tricky. So once you learn the verse and the chorus, the first verse and the first chorus, you've pretty much learned all you need to know except for the bridge. And the only difference between verse 1, chorus 1, verse 2, chorus 2, verse 3, chorus 3. The only difference is how you connect them and some inflections on the vocals, the way he sings it. So once you learn one verse, one chorus, the rest of them will kind of fall a lot easier for you. So let's get into verse 1. So it starts off with the intro. No singing, just guitar, but it starts off, little darling, that part. So that's the first little phrase we're going to attack, and we'll slow that way down for you too. So it starts off, first two measures are just a D major. And anytime you have a D major throughout the song, pretty much, your alternating bass is just going to be between the D string and the G string. Okay? So you have I start off with my D string just as a downbeat, and then I strum the top 3 strings. Index finger on the B string, and then I sus2 this chord, and I play the D and the high E strings at the same time, and then 2nd fret back down here on the high E string with my index finger, and then your thumb gets the G string, index finger on the B string. So next measure, keep your bass line going, and then on beat 2, pinch the top 3 strings, then open high E string, open D with your thumb, and then you can use your middle finger to grab the B string, and then your thumb on the G string, and then you have the open G and B strings. And one thing that I figured out, or that I wanted to do throughout this entire song to make it a little more interesting, because there's so many, it's so thick, like harmonically, and what's going on with all the instruments and vocals, I generally start out every measure with 2 notes on top just to harmonize it. So just to give it a little more thickness. So watch out for that. You don't have to do that, but it's something I found that sounds nice. So those first two measures are just... From there, as soon as you hit those two open strings, you go to a G chord, and it's a G chord, but I do play the third. It's kind of like this 4-finger G, but I'm not playing the whole thing. I'm playing the third fret of the B with this pinky, and the third finger comes out here and reaches out and grabs the third fret of the low E, and I'm not worrying about this B because I'm not using it. Pretty much anytime you see a G chord, your bass notes that are going to be alternating are the low E and the D string, and that holds true for every chord throughout this entire arrangement. Is you're always aiming for the root in the fifth instead of as opposed to the root in the third. So in this case, for that G, you start with that root note, and then the third fret of the B that's already fretting, open D, open high E string, B string that you're already fretting on the third fret, D string, and then the open, you lift your pinky up to get the open B string. So okay, that's the G in measure 3. And then for the next measure, you move to an A7. Now, I don't know why, I just end up using these two fingers for the A7 here. You can use any combination you want, but I use my second and third fingers. Anyway, you end up with this. So I'm just alternating my bass notes between the A and the D string. And then, like I said, I'm pinching two notes with my fingers on the first beat just to make it a little thicker sounding. So the G and B strings, then the open B, and then back to the second fret of the B, and then your pinky goes down to the third fret of the B and hits that by itself. Bass note on the thumb, high E string, and then finish off with that bass note with your thumb. So that measure for the A, and one thing I found out that was really helpful for me when I was learning this was to listen to the song a lot before I even tried to tackle tabbing it out or playing it, because if I could hear the melody in my head, it made it a lot easier for me to actually play it on the guitar. So listen to the song a lot before you even try playing it. And then once you go to read the tab, it'll be a lot easier for you. Okay, the next little phrase of the intro, which is really the second phrase of what would be the verse. Let me play that first 4 measures for you. So. Okay, and take this 1 measure or 2 measures at a time. It's the best way to kind of internalize it after you've memorized what it sounds like from the recording. So the next phrase, let me play that for you, then we'll pick it apart. It's very similar to the first one. Okay, so you go to a D to finish. It starts off the exact same way in this exact same chord, so that's nice. So this one, that one, the D is the exact same, but sometimes I strum it, sometimes I just pick it. So same exact as measure 1, but sometimes I'll pick that second 2 notes instead of strumming them. Next measure, same exact thing so far. And exact same thing. So measures 5 and 6 are the exact same as measures 1 and 2. So. Then you go to a G, and it changes a little bit here, the melody on top. So I'm going to a G, my third finger is reaching out to this low E string, but I have to reach all the way over here to the high E string with my index finger on fret 2, the high E string. So then open, and then the third fret of the B string, and then I kind of switch to an A chord right on the and a 4 of that measure 7 there with that G. So. And then on the next measure, on the downbeat, I hit an A root note since I'm on an A7 chord, and I just let that ring out for 1 measure. So the second phrase of the verse, and this is going to be for every verse, which is great. So once you have it learned for all the rest of the times throughout the song. So second phrase of the verse. bit faster. Okay. So I would recommend just working on those two phrases at first. Once you can play those, your verses are pretty much covered. There, like I said, there are a couple of different inflections with the timing as far as when he's singing this, but you'll pick up on those and be able to place them either on the beat or a little bit off the beat, a little bit more syncopated, and that's what it works out. You'll see that in the tab as well. So you got the verses down. If you can play that, let's go ahead and move on to the choruses. Actually, let me just go ahead and play one entire verse for you so you can get a feel for it. And every time you play the verse, you just, when you get to that A, that last measure of A, you just kind of play through. But the first one stops and rests, and you'll hear it. It goes into like the first chorus. Here comes the sun, which is the part we'll learn right now. Okay, it starts off on a D. And that's the first measure. Again, for D, your thumb just alternates between the D and G strings, and the melody on top is on beat 2. I pinch the top 2 strings, the high E and B, and then let off to play the high E string open. And the fingerings are all written in here for you too, as far as your picking hand. But just look at them as suggestions, you know. Do whatever works for you. Keep the bass line going, and then back to the 2nd fret of the high E with your middle finger. Keep the bass line going. And then the last melody note of that first measure of the chorus is just the 3rd fret of the B string. So keep the bass line going. Beat 2, you pinch the top 3 strings. And of 2, index finger on the 3rd fret of the B. And then beat 3 is thumb on the D, middle finger on the high E, open. And then put your 2nd finger back down for the end of 3 with your middle finger, and then on beat 4 you just have your bass notes. So those first 2 measures of the chorus, you have this. From there you go to a G major, and really this is feels like a G major 7, but I'm just going to call it a G major because that's what I'm thinking. Then the melody notes kind of move around on top, right? So alternating bass line is just the low E and the D strings the whole time, and on the melody on beat 2, top 2 strings. So you have to fret the 2nd fret of the high E and then the open B, then open high E string. Keep the bass line going. Back to the 2nd fret of the high E for the melody. Keep the bass line going. And then the melody moves to the 3rd fret of the B string with your pinky. So, and then it moved. You have to hold that note down while you move the rest of your hand to an E major chord. And the E major chord, the bass line there, is going to be just the E and A strings. So on beat 2, you have just the normal E chord and then the G and B strings on the melody on top on beat 2. And here's one of the trickier parts. Next you have to play the open high E and then hammer on to the 2nd fret and then pull off back to the open high E. Keep the bass line going. Then the melody goes to the 3rd fret of the B string, all while keeping your bass line going. So this is one of the trickier parts, like to match the inflections. It's different every time he does it. He doesn't ever sing it the same way twice as far as the timing, but I just kind of let my knowledge of the song, because I've listened to it so much, kind of dictate the feel for the vocals or the melody on top. So those 2 measures, the G and the E, will sound like this. A little bit faster for you. So that one's pretty tricky. All right, let me play that first phrase of the chorus up to speed for you so you can get a good feel for it. Okay, and here comes the 2nd phrase of the chorus. All right, this is a D major chord, so keep your bass line going, and the melody on top is just on the and of 1. You have the top 2 strings with the D chord, and then the open high E string on the and of 2, And on the end of 3, the 3rd fret of the B string. And I like to get most of those with my middle finger. So, and here's one of the trickier parts. Just because of the way I had to arrange this in the chord shapes I had to do 2 notes here on the 2nd fret of the G string. One's a bass note and one's a melody note. So it goes, and that last 2nd fret of the G string is da 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 da. It's the beginning of that. And here you have a G. Doesn't look like a G though. Here's your G. You normally, have a G chord like this, and this note is in a 4-finger G. You're just putting this note up here on the 4th fret of the G string in there too. And all you do is pinch the low E string and the G string, and then continue rolling up the B and the high E strings. And that's the pattern for this whole little part. And this one was a little bit weird feeling for me just because I've never used this shape before, particularly with these 2 fingers. But I found that this way, thumb, 2nd and 3rd fingers was the most efficient because of the next chord that's coming up, which is a D over F sharp, which is really D sus2 over F sharp. So that change was a little bit tricky to get down. Whoa, that was ugly. So that, then D over F sharp, sus2, and you do the same thing here. Pinch the low E and the G strings, then roll up the B and high E, and then you have what is an E minor 7 chord, but the only note you need to fret out of here, because you're not using the other notes you'd be fretting, is the 3rd fret. Just leave your middle finger where it is and take everything else off. So E minor 7, and then you move to a D sus2, and your bass note moves to the open D string, but your fingers stay on top. Okay, so this one will take a little bit to get down. Then move to the D. Okay. And if you need to work on your rolling, this is a fantastic opportunity for that, because it's pretty quick. And right there, that last little bit I did moves to an A, just an A7, or you can think of it as just a normal A chord. I play the A string, the open G string, and the 3rd fret of the B string. Then the 2nd fret of the B string, open B string with another A bass note, and then 2nd fret of the G string. So it'll sound something like this, really slow. And the first time through the course, this is where, remember how I said the verses and the choruses are pretty much the same throughout except for the transitions. This is the first transition back into a verse. So this is where you really need to pay attention. As soon as you do that, you immediately start the next verse. And you play through the verse again, and then play through the chorus again with a couple of minor like articulations in the vocals. But once you get to the end of the 2nd chorus, the transition changes a little bit. Let me play this whole chorus for you through, and then we'll get into the transitions, because this will be the bulk of the work. Here you go. This is where you would go back into, just go right back into that and play that through the verse just like you did. Only when you get to the end of the verse, you don't stop on the A, just, you keep your bass going. And then go right into the chorus. And the second time, I'm just going through it on my laptop. The second time you get through the chorus, instead of just going, instead of just stopping there and getting back into the verse, you have this. And all that is, it's a D to an A7. It's kind of the same thing you've been doing with the melody already. And then A7. And then that gets you into verse 3 and chorus 3, which are the exact same until you get to the end of the 3rd chorus, which gets ready to go into the bridge. So the transition changes a little bit here too. Let me show you what that is. Okay, so end of chorus 3, it starts off kind of the same way as the end of chorus 2. With that open B string, and you move to an A7, but this time you only have 2 hits on the A. 1, 2. And this is the first of a couple of really weird measures as far as timing goes. I think of this as a measure of 2/4, so it's just 2 beats of an A. So let me play the transition from chorus 3 into the bridge for you so you can see how that works. And then we'll get into I'll play into the bridge too so you can see how it gets from the chorus to the bridge. Here you go. That gets you into the bridge of the song. This is where things get really weird with the timing. The way I like to think about this, as soon as you hit that bump, bump measure of 2/4, just 2 A7 chords like that, just pinching. What happens is you end up with 1, 2, 3, 4 measures of 3/8 time, or at least this is the way I like to think about it, because you have that, and that's a group of 3, so you have right? So the first measure of 3/8 is just kind of a lead-in over an A major chord, and all it is an arpeggio. It's open A, 4th fret of the A, and then 2nd fret of the D string, and I like to play all those with my thumb. Okay, and that's just so 1, 2, 3, 3 8 notes, eighth notes, and that sets you up to get into this, that whole thing. So the first one is after that, the next measure of 3/8. It's just a F major chord, just a partial F on the top 4 strings. What you do is hit the lowest root note there on the D string, that F, and then pinch the top 2 strings with your 1st and 2nd finger, and then G string and B string with your thumb. So that's important coordination to get down, because the next 2 measures also use that same type of thing. But when you switch to the next measure, you go to a C chord, do the same thing, but your thumb starts on the A string. Okay? Then you go to a G over B, and your fingers come down for the melody, come down to the G and B strings instead of the high E and B string. So that's your 4 measures of 3/8. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then you have a measure of 2/8 on a G chord. So that's your first 8th note, the low E string, and then pinch the G and B strings. And I go to the D string, and my pinky comes down on the 3rd fret of the B string there. So, and then you have 1 full measure of 4/4 on a D major chord. So here is that. It's and all I'm doing there is switching to like straight 8th notes, alternating on the D and G string. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and at the very beginning of that you have. So that's a little bit tricky. Sun, 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 here it comes. All right. So, and that whole thing, starting with the measures of 3/8. From there, you get a measure of 2/4 on an A7. And all you do is hit an A7 chord on top once, and then keep your alternating bass line going for the remaining measure of 2/4. So 1 and 2 and this is the main phrase of the bridge. It stops there, and then it goes back to the do 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 da 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 da. And you do that a total of 6 times, but on the 6th time, the ending is a little bit different. I'll show that to you in a second. Let me play this whole bridge phrase for you. And just remember that you have to do this thing 6 times. On the 6th time, the end changes a little bit. So here you go. And from there, just repeat it again. Again, do it total 6 times. So once more, a little bit faster. And that's it. You do that 6 times, but at the end of the 6th time, when you get to that measure of 4/4 on the D chord, on the and of 4, you switch to an A7, and the next few measures are kind of a build-up into verse 4, and it would be chorus 4 and all that. So on the and of 4, 3 and 4 and, you go to an A7 chord, and you stick on that for a few measures, and it sounds like this. you can do the little stop that they do there, or you can just keep playing like. And then go back into the verse. But the fingering here, or the frets here, are just a regular A7 chord, and your thumb just going full tilt on 8th notes for all 4 of these measures for the A7 chord. And you have from the and of the previous measure, you have this, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So open B string 4, 2nd fret, and then the 3rd fret on the and of 4. The next measure, you kind of continue the same thing. On the and of 3, you have, and I'm grabbing the G and B strings here every time too. So, and here's the next measure, 64, 2nd fret, an open G string, then 3rd fret, and then the open high E string and the 2nd fret of the G string. Okay, keep that going. Then on the and of 3 of the next measure, G string, 3rd fret of the B, open high E, 2nd fret of the B, and then 3rd fret of the high E, 2nd fret of the B. And that's the whole phrase. So if you listen to it a lot, this will be much easier for you to kind of figure out and play. And you can either do this staccato like that or just play. And we're kind of build into it. Either way works. From there, you just go into the verse again, verse 4. And after that, you go to chorus 4. And when you play through the chorus 4, you do it again. So it's kind of a double chorus. So here comes the sun, little night, here comes sun, it's all right. And then you go right back into after you play that twice, the chorus part, you go through the. From there, you go right into it's alright. And back into the. And then to end things off, you have this little F, partial F again. Kind of the same idea. C, G over B, G. And then you end on a D. So that last little bit, you can do the little trill in there, but that's not what it does in the song. You just go to a D. So the transitions are probably the trickiest part of this. But again, the biggest help to me when I was learning this was to just listen to the song, listen, to where I could hear it in my head before I actually started playing this. Actually, I made a mistake of not doing that. Then I kind of went back. It's like, I just need to listen to this a lot. And then I did for a couple days, and then I went back to attack it, and it helped out a lot. So let me see if I can play this whole thing for you all the way through. If you're struggling with getting the basics of fingerstyle down, go to guitarfam.com, create your complimentary account. The Fingerstyle Masterclass is out now, so that's going to give you everything you need to build a perfect foundation for fingerstyle and get you to where you can play songs like this on your own just by either coming up with your own arrangements or looking at the sheet music or the tab for them. So head over there, invest in your fingerstyle abilities today, or get started with the first complimentary module there. You can even schedule a personal private one-on-one lesson with me. The first one is also complimentary. I'll be looking forward to seeing you there. Here you go.